about the new business agreements that are being introduced in Clarity 16.0.0. So in this release, we will be introducing agreements. This is the first version of this new capability that is going to be made available. We are going to provide the ability to view agreements between investments in a central place or within the respective investment. Investment roadmap planning based on investment agreements. Talking to several large customers, they brought up to our attention that as they invest in different investments, there are several dependencies and several agreements that are made between investments. And in order for a certain investment to be delivered on time, the agreement has to be met. Customers then have hired full-time employees just to manage those agreements and to make sure that investments are keeping with their agreements. This obviously becomes very tedious and very labor intensive to keep track of all the agreements, who made the agreement, and then what is the ripple effect of certain agreements not being met. So thus, as part of all of those feedback from our customers, we have decided to introduce the ability to define and manage agreements within Clarity itself, and then be able to plan based on those agreements within your roadmap. So agreements is going to be a new object that is being introduced in 16.0.0. This new object will only be visible in the modern UX. This object comes with default blueprint, and new blueprints can be created by administrators. Agreements attributes can be secured using field level security. Currently, we do not support Zog or Process, but REST APIs are available. Agreements can be created between projects, ideas, and custom investment types. Agreement data can be secured using field level security, and OBS can be assigned to agreements. Out of the box, there are several attributes that are available for the end users to use. These attributes can be seen in the object definition. I am not going to read through every one, but some of the key ones are essentially the contributors for the agreement. The predecessor and the successor are two key fields that defines which investment has to deliver something for another investment to consume. And that is your agreement between the predecessor and the successor. There is the dates that really determine if by when the agreement has to be met, and which is the commitment date, that is the date by when the predecessor can commit to deliver something, and then the deadline, which is the last date by when the successor needs that deliverable given to them. In addition to these fields, the customer's administrator can also define additional fields, because this is a studio object that can be then used for tracking and managing this data. Agreements comes with several access rights. The list is right here, which is similar to other investment types. I will not read through each and every one, but it comes with the same standard create, edit, delete, and navigate rights. Agreements also have their own blueprints. And today in agreement blueprints, there are only two modules that can be added, which is the properties or canvas. In addition, every other investments, the project, idea, and custom investment types also have a new module that is available that can be included called agreements. This new module will then display the data if that specific investment is either a predecessor or a successor to an agreement that is being made. To create an agreement between investments is pretty much as straightforward by going into the new agreements area within Clarity in Modern UX, clicking on the plus button or the right click new to create a new agreement. When creating the agreement, the user can define the owner, the contributor, the commitment date, the deadline date, predecessor, and successor as the values to ensure that the agreement is clearly defined. The owner contributor are multi-value lookup that will allow the user to select one or more as the owner or contributor for the agreement. The predecessor and successor are also multi-value lookup, so you can define agreements where multiple investments have to deliver something to for multiple investments to consume. So they both are multi-value lookups. Once the agreement is created between investments, then those agreements can be seen either in the agreements section of Clarity or within the agreements modules within the respective investments. So in this example, I have agreements as a module that is added to the projects, and there I can see all the same fields that are available in the agreements, the dates, the predecessor and the successor, as well as I can click on the actual agreement and then navigate to see additional data for those agreements. The agreements within the respective investments are view only, so no data can be modified within the actual investments agreement module. The agreement data can only be modified while in the agreements itself. This is the first time we are also introducing Canvas. So while within an agreement, now the end user have the option to view the data of that agreement in a canvas. It's a customizable layout that each end user can configure themselves and save it in their own view. The canvas essentially is something that is first being introduced in agreements, and we plan to add it to other parts of the application in the future. Canvas can be personalized by each user using the Configure Canvas button. The canvas comes with 3 widgets out of the box, which are investment dependencies, conversation, and stakeholder. These widgets can be included anywhere in the canvas and moved around as necessary. Modifying canvas is done by dragging the available widgets or fields within the canvas itself. And as the dragging is taking place, we also have the background shading change based on where the field could end up. So like in this example, I am moving the contributor from this column, the extreme right column, to one of the middle column. And as I'm doing that, the background is changed to dark dark shaded gray, telling me that that's where it'll end up once I drag this field. Widgets and fields can also be resized within the 6-column layout that is available. We can include any data type except for TSV, and multiple canvas configuration can be saved using the saved views. The views can be saved either in the view or edit mode of Canvas. When inside Canvas, the data can also be edited. The predecessor and successor can be added using the predecessor and successor fields or the investment dependent widget. User will only see the objects that they have access to include in that agreement. And if the user only has access to a single object, then they will see that single button, very similar to actions within projects. Agreements also support conversation, and conversation can be done using the conversation widget or in the flyout within the agreement layout. Any at mentions will automatically notify the users in the notification bell. Once agreements have been made across several investments, then the user can also see those agreements in their roadmap where those investments have been included. This is done by using the new view option checkbox called show agreements, and there is a new icon that will be displayed for any investment that have an agreement with it. Those icons are listed right here. There is also a dashed line connecting the two investments, as in this example, the security compliance has all these different investments that have an agreement with. So those dashed lines shows the agreement between security compliance and all the other investments. Hovering over the specific dashed line will make that line darker to show what the relationships are. With that, let's see the product in action. So now I am in Clarity 16.0.0. The first thing that I'm going to show is the actual studio where I can see the new object for agreements. So here within the studio object definition, I can see that there is a new object called agreement. I can click and view all its attributes. So these are all the default out of the box attributes. I have the option to create new ones that I want to, or just use these as is. Next, I'm going to go to the modern UX administration. And under the blueprints, I can see that agreements have its own blueprints. And today, the only modules that are available in this blueprint are the canvas and properties. If I don't want the end users to see the properties or all those attributes, I can just take this out and just have canvas as my only module. Next, let's go into the actual agreement itself. So you can see that there is a new icon that is being added, which is for agreements. Clicking on that, provided I have the appropriate access right, I can see the different agreements that have been previously created. To create a new one, I can use either the add row to create one, or to delete one, I can just right mouse click and delete one. The attributes that are available are if my agreement is on track, the owners, which is a multi-value lookup, the contributors, which is also a multi-value lookup, the commitment date, this is the date by when the predecessor is committing to deliver the agreement, or the deadline, which is the date by when the successor has to get those actual agreement completed. The predecessor is a multi-value lookup, and I can see all the different types of investments, whether it's idea, projects, or my custom investment types. And same for successors. To create one, it is as simple as, like I mentioned, creating in here. So I'm going to give it a name, and name is the only minimum required value in this default out of the box. So just populating the name, it has created one. I can define the status. I can then define the different owners and contributors. So let's go ahead and just define few. I'm going to give a commitment date of end of this month, which is the date by when the predecessor has to deliver something to me, but my actual deadline after which I'll be late is going to be the middle of next month. For predecessor, I'm going to define my security compliance because I need the security infrastructure to be populated and security compliance to be met and my mobile infrastructure to be populated in order for me to deliver my mobile advertisement and mobile commerce to go to market. So if all of this is ready, then I can essentially define, I can have my agreement met. So those are all my predecessors. And once I have that, then I can go to market with my new mobile technology that is available. In this case, once I've defined this, the agreement is being made. I can look at this agreement by going into the respective projects where, or the investments where this agreement is. So first, let's just look at those investments. I'm going to go to security compliance, which is the investment that has agreements made to it. And then navigating to the agreements, I can see that there are two agreements, and the newly created one is also listed right here. I can see all the respective fields. I have the option to configure my columns to add or remove as I choose to do so, as well as filter for anything else that's specific. To modify this agreement or to see more details, I cannot modify anything from here. I have to navigate back to my actual agreement itself. So I can either click on it right here or go to agreements and then go to this. So let's just go ahead and click on this specific agreement itself. That opens up my agreement and I can see my canvas layout. This canvas layout is something that each user can configure. And to configure is just clicking on the configure button right here. And it gives me the list of the 3 widgets as well as all the fields that are available that I can include. I can move any of these predefined fields or widgets as I choose to do so. So I can move the status to be here. I can move the commitment to be below. And I can move the description above if I want to. I can save this layout right while I'm in still the configuration mode, or I can leave it as is and I can just say done. If I don't like my layout, I can easily just go back to the default. I'm back in the view mode. Within this canvas layout, each field is editable. So if I want to change the commitment date, I can just click on it and then pick a new date. Maybe make it sooner because now my deadline is a few days earlier. I can change the stakeholders, which is the contributor and the owner, by easily just clicking on the edit, and I can add additional contributor. Maybe I can remove. I don't need 3 owners. I just need 1 owner. So I can just easily remove that. I can change the status to on track or needs help. I can also have a conversation going on, as well as if I need to add or remove any predecessor or successor, I can do that by clicking on the add button. So clicking on the add will first give me the list of all the object types that I have access to. So in this case, I have access to all of these object types, but if I only had access to a subset, or if I only had access to one object type, then that one object type will be the only one listed here instead of this add button. Clicking on this to add gives me the same project modal where I can select one or multiple. I can filter based on different data. I can use existing project filters. So maybe I just only want to include my projects. And in doing so, I can do that and then click on the add button. And now I added additional predecessors to this list. Once I've done defining all of this relationship, configuring my agreements, defining the different values, I can now go ahead and see how the investments could impact my roadmap. So in this demo, I will only show you an existing roadmap. There is Another section that I highly recommend you should view is all the changes that are coming in roadmap, where we cover this more in detail as to how to create roadmaps and view this. So in my example, I'm going to go into my existing roadmap where I've already pulled in different investments. Here you can see for all the investments that are pulled in, there are two different types of lines: the hard line, which shows me the dependency, and the dotted line, which then shows me um, the agreements between the different investments. In addition, I also see this agreement that has been created based on this icon. If there's too much data on the screen, I can easily toggle off to maybe not show the dependency, only show me agreements. Once done so, all those lines, the dependencies should be removed, and I should only see the agreements. So right there, all the dependency lines are gone and only the agreements is there, and hovering over it darkens that line to show the actual agreement between. So in this case, something has to be delivered by the compliance audit in order for the executive dashboard to be delivered. Which makes it interesting because I have this to be delivered much later, so I can easily, based on that realization, have to pull this forward so that now I deliver this early. And you can see the lines will remain with it. And that concludes the section about business agreements. Thank you.